I'm so bad about that.
Welcome everybody to Freology Friday. I'm Derrick Day, and he is.
I'm Aaron Tomlinson.
I got to remember which way I'm pointing now because
All
we,
right.
we got flipped in. Oh man! So how was your week, Aaron? Let's start with that first.
I had a really good week. I'm glad to report. I was due, man. So yeah, it was a good week. How about yours?
You know what? I had a good week too. It was busy as fuck, but but it was productive, and I think I earned a few feathers in my cap.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so that was actually pretty cool. And
Yeah.
anyway,
Wife's happy now, huh?
yeah, yeah. Well, hey, oh man, listen, happy wife, happy life, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what they never tell you is the opposite of that.
No, they don't.
But that's true too.
Was it happy wife, happy life, miserable wife, your life is fucking hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. So what's in the glass tonight, man?
So I've got a Bloody Mary. I put I forgot I was gonna put a jalapeno olive in there. I was going to put a jalapeno olive in there and I forgot. So
Damn it.
it's just Bloody Mary mix and some Worcestershire sauce and some hot sauce. And didn't have time to cook up a slice of pepper bacon, but that would have been good in there too.
Oh God, yes. Man. Well, we're on the same vibe here because I have what I'm calling or we call this a bloody martini, which is basically it's a martini with
Yeah.
Bloody Mary mix,
Yeah.
and I have some um, blue cheese olives down in here.
Okay. My son heard me. So give me a second
Oh,
and I'll add my jalapeno olive and that's going to make it perfect. Yeah. I like blue cheese olives too. Typically that's my go-to, but I don't know if you can see. Yeah. You can't really see it in there, but here we go.
yeah, and my martini shaker is kind of like half-assed because I don't know. My kids discovered it for something, and so now all of the hardware is missing.
Wow.
So go figure. And I know they're not drinking martinis. That would be really cool, but that's not what they're doing. It's you
Not what
know,
they're doing.
I don't know, probably
Protein shake, right?
a smoothie or something like that. Who knows? Yeah,
Protein shakes.
yeah, yeah. That too.
Mm.
So I was thinking about this, and I'd asked you a couple of days ago, had we done a show on this? And
Yep.
and you said no, we didn't, and I don't think that we did. But I want to talk about visions and dreams, because we talked a while back about goals, right? And
Mm.
why it's important to set goals and how to track your goals and all of that, and how basically a goal is a dream with a deadline. But uh, when back in the days when we were like when we were preaching, we're Christian pastors, we talk about the vision that God gave us, right?
Yep.
And here's the thing, like even though I land on the atheist end of the spectrum, I
Right.
don't discount the notion of consciousness or global consciousness, and the ability
Oh,
for the universe, for lack of a better term, um, to help formulate a vision. Which the difference between visions and dreams, basically, and this is my working definition, a vision is like a conscious, a conscious viewing of something that, or conscious seeing something that isn't there, right?
mm.
Whereas a dream is something that happens in your subconscious or your unconscious.
Okay.
And that's just my working definition. I'm sure that you have something better than that, but that when you start when okay, let me back this up for a second, because consciousness is at the root of everything, right?
Yeah.
So if consciousness is at the root of everything, then that means consciousness is sort of the root of thought, and everything that we manifest in the natural realm is born of a thought. A
Yeah.
thought produces a word. The word produces an action. The action produces a habit, and so on and so forth. But what I wanted to talk about is how because there are different people in different stages of deconstruction,
Hmm.
and if you're if you're a Christian, you've heard vision and dream sermons.
Yeah.
You've heard vision and dream stories. But what happens when you separate yourself from, say, Christianity or anything religious, and you delve into something spiritual, or you delve into something more metaphysical? Okay, how do we first of all understand that visions and dreams is something that's part of the human experience, and then how do we I don't know, how do we unpack it? How do we make it work outside of the Christian paradigm? And that's kind of what I wanted to unpack. I mean, first of all, like what visions and dreams are, how to how to take a vision and move it from my mind's eye into my physical eye, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do I express visions and dreams outside of the paradigms that we've been taught? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great setup there. First thing that comes to mind with me is I think there are certain, like we highlighted certain principles or verses in scripture for a reason. Like nobody preaches the, I'm sorry for laughing, but we used to talk about preaching the full counsel of God and
Yeah.
preaching the full word of God. And for us, the counsel of God was scripture, right? And
Yep.
nobody does that. No,
No.
everybody cherry picks, right?
Yep.
So then you got to ask yourself the question, why did we highlight certain aspects or verses as opposed to others? Same reason, why why did you buy a Tesla? Why do you like cars? Why have you been into cars?
Hmm.
And me not so much, right? Like something inside you emerged from your own consciousness that said, I really enjoy cars, probably as far back as you can remember, that was something that was an interest of yours.
Yep.
And so what I find really fascinating is, and this is a little Freudian, little Jungian psychology here, but whatever we chose to highlight when in scripture, or whatever a person chooses to focus on, it's that same kind of sorting process, right? It says more about the person, what's emerging from their consciousness, than it says about what's actual objective truth, I guess you could say. So what's interesting to me, and has been, is to sometimes listen to preachers and realize that they don't realize they're doing this, but they are, as they read the scriptures, as they engage with those things, it's really a mirror of what's emerging out of them. So
Mm.
in other words, if you have a preacher that highlights hellfire and damnation and Jesus coming back to kick ass at the second coming,
Yeah.
then what all that really says is that guy's got some aggression, has, maybe some unhealed aggression, some hatred, some need to see people suffer that causes them to highlight that stuff.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like the grace preachers, the grace preachers never really go into Hebrews chapter 10, where it's a scary thing to fall into the hands of a living God, or, um, you know, Paul, where he makes the list of all the various different sins in Galatians, and I think it's First Corinthians. If you do these things, you shall not inherit the kingdom of God. Like if those were ever addressed in the grace movement, it was because someone else brought it to their attention, and they had to come up with some bullshit to make their
Yeah,
theology.
I know I
It
did.
wasn't really, it wasn't really, am I interested in what Paul really thought, or what God is really saying. And so that's interesting to me. And so I guess what I would say to that is, if you think about it, how many messages did you preach or I preach or did you hear from Proverbs 29:18, where there is no vision, the people perish? Or Habakkuk, I want Habakkuk chapter 3, stand on the watch, see what he will say to me, write the vision, make it plain that he may run that readeth it.
Yep.
Like, but are there any more obscure books in the Bible? Like, think about it. Why would we pull out Proverbs 29:18? Why in the hell would anybody spend any time reading Habakkuk?
Yeah.
So what I would say on the positive side of that is, I think what's being expressed there is a genuine recognition of human experience and human need. I do think it's true where there is no vision, the people perish. But I would say not because the Bible says that. I would say that because that spoke to so many people. In other words,
Yep.
this need for a vision or a dream, something that gives you hope, something that gives you to look forward to in the future, is generally ubiquitous to human experience. And so if we can embrace that and say, okay, this is ubiquitous, this is a human need, this is a life hack, if you want to call it that,
Mm-hmm.
that takes it outside of its religious context, right? That takes it outside of its spiritual context even, and makes it real tangible to human need.
You know what? I want to throw something out to the audience. Say if you have a vision, if you know that you harbor a vision, something that's in your spirit, throw a heart in the
Yeah.
chat,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't have a vision, put a smiley face in the chat. And I don't want to say sad face, because not having a vision is not an indicator of sadness. That's what I want to make really clear here, because sometimes people, they don't really understand where they're going, and that's not necessarily an indicator of happiness. It just means that you're just kind of meandering, right? But to that point, where in Habakkuk, where it said, write the vision down, make it plain, so that they who hear it can run with it. I think, and then in Proverbs, where it says that people perish for lack of vision, it speaks to direction,
Yeah.
right? I think that having a vision in your life, what it really, really does for you is it helps you to chart a course
Mm-hmm.
and figure out, okay, what direction am I heading in? And this is the thing, like, I don't know, I just have a feeling that we're going to spend a lot of time in Bible stuff tonight, but that people will say Jesus said, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me." And basically, it's casting Jesus as the way. It's the way, and but I don't believe that there is a way. I believe that there are many paths, and many paths to enlightenment, to enchantment, to satisfaction, and all of that.
Yeah.
But in order to get to any of those on ramps, you have to have vision. And I forget who it was. It's some God. I want to say, oh, it was Helen Keller that said this. I knew it was someone from American folklore, Americana. But Helen Keller said that that the greater shame is to have sight and no vision.
Mm.
And so a lot of us, we think of things in terms of Ben Urban says the Bible ick.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm sorry, I just had to call that out. Don't worry, Ben. We're not. There, no preaching. No preaching. No Bible will be harmed in the course of this. Uh, Something like that. But anyway, uh, basically, if you are looking for an on ramp to your destiny, and again, just like on the highway, there are many on ramps, off ramps, right? Many interchanges, clover leaves, and all of that. Um, there are many ways of getting there, wherever there is. But in order for you to get to there, you have to figure out how to perceive the path. And the path is not necessarily visual, but your third eye, your sixth sense or whatever. But getting this vision, how can I say this? Let me use a personal example. Because when I was growing up, I remember the day that my mom took us to Detroit, as I was born in Decatur, Illinois, right? And I was upset about leaving Decatur.
Hmm.
And I think that I was angry with my mother for probably a good 2 years
Sure.
at least. I I hated Detroit. And even when I got acclimatized to Detroit, got used to Detroit, I was making my plan to get out. I mean, from a small child, I was figuring out how to get out. Now, the way out for me was to cast a vision,
Mm.
to see myself somewhere else, and to use this vision to create a goal and a plan to get out. But if you can't envision something, and this is what I think is really sad, is that I believe that the universe is prepared to give us every single thing that we want to fulfill our heart's desire. But you will only get what you deserve. Now, your deserving has nothing to do with your behavior. Your deserving has to do with your perception of yourself. In other words, if you don't think that you deserve to drive a Lamborghini, you never will.
Hmm.
If you don't think you deserve to have a good marriage, you never will. If you don't think that you deserve to leave a situation or a place that you don't think is conducive to who your best authentic part of yourself is, then it'll never happen. So it
Hmm.
all begins with getting this vision. And so I want to take this and kick it back to you because you talk about consciousness, right? And
Hmm.
I really want to pick on your hat for a second. I want to hang my hat here for a second, and that's that in order to get this vision, we have to first understand consciousness, because our why is tied to understanding. And that understanding is tied to consciousness.
Yeah.
So without vision, and watch this, without vision, every dream you have will die.
Right.
That's the way I wanted to respin that. Where there is no vision, the people perish. It isn't you who die. You will not die because you lack vision, but your dreams will die. Your hopes will die. The things that you think will express your best authentic self, those things will die. So anyway, with that, there you go, man.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to go with that. One thing I would encourage people, some people are more visionary than others. You and I tend to be pretty visionary. Um, but we need people too, right? Like I'm an idea factory. I could sit all day long and come up with 100 money making ideas and then
Yep.
not be able to decide which one to pick and or how to put it together. so so I just want to bring in the community aspect of this for people that maybe they aren't as visionary or as purpose driven. Ugh. God, I still get triggered. I get triggered when I hear that phrase. Holy shit.
Hey,
I
we're just completely fucking up tonight, man.
fuck, fuck religion, man. I should not get triggered by using the term purpose driven, but oh my God, was there a okay, let me just have a moment. Okay.
Woosah.
Yeah. But there are some people that by temperament, they're just more supportive, they're more collaborative, and they need someone to kind of help them with that visionary process, right? So I don't want to give people the impression that you have to come up with this great vision all on your own. A lot of stuff we do collectively, and some people are just wired, and their purpose in life really is to come alongside others and help them fulfill a
Can I stop you for just a second to give you a
mutually
name for that?
beneficial mutually
Corporate.
beneficial. Let me just finish this real
Yeah,
quick. A mutually beneficial vision. So because in the church it was always you're here to fulfill the vision God gave me, whether it benefits you or not. So I just want to make that part clear. So yeah, go ahead.
no. I was just giving a name to what you're saying. Corporate vision.
Mm, yeah,
That's all. That was it. That was the only thing I was trying to kick in because I was just giving a name to what you were saying.
yeah. So just on that end of it, but when you talk about consciousness and you talk about the importance of vision, so here's where I'm at with things, and of course I can't empirically prove it, and there's maybe some guy whose pay grade is way higher than mine that knows why, according to quantum physics or the nature of reality, this can't work. But I genuinely do believe that at the root of all things is mind. So I'm reminded of the Doctor Strange movie when the first one,
Yeah,
when he meets the guru. I can't remember her name right now.
I can't
Um,
either.
the ancient one or whatever, right?
Yeah,
And he's kind of full of himself, and she pushes him and knocks him out of his body, right? And then you get this descriptive of the universe, which really is occult. I mean, it really is occult teaching in that scene where she talks about there are many different worlds. There are some worlds that have descended into complete, you know, darkness and corruption and evil. But there's one line in that movie where she talks about the place where mind and matter become one.
mm,
And so, if I could say it this way, Derrick, then for me, the way I choose to live my life, mind or consciousness is the prime mover.
yeah,
So the way I choose to coach people and counsel people and live my life is from the inside out rather than from the outside in. So if something in my life needs to change, it needs to change on the inside first. So let's take something simple like weight loss. Um, you've been on this journey since what, January?
yep.
Um, you've inspired me. I think you've lost 30 pounds. I think I've lost 5. But nevertheless, I'm paying more attention to my diet and how much activities in my life, what I'm eating, calorie intake, outtake, that kind of thing. But I know for me, whether it's a financial, there have been times in my life I've been really focused on my finances and I've done really well. Times in my life I've really been focused on my health, I've done really well. Times in my life when I've really been focused on helping others, I've done really well. Really focused on creating teaching content or whatever, done really well. But I always had to change something inside of me first. Like, so where I begin with the weight loss journey, I never begin with, tomorrow I'm going to diet. I always begin with, I'm going to spend this week watching at least one video on diet and exercise and health and reading one article. And I may do that for 6 weeks. before something kicks in and I start to take action. So
Mm.
what I'm trying to say is that that's why I think vision is important. That's why I think purpose is important, because for me, it's the prime mover
Yep.
in my life. And in my worldview, it's the prime mover of reality. So if there's no thought, if there's no vision, now you're subject to outside in sort of living.
Yep.
And that's when you lose direction because things change, right? So I tell this story often on my channel, and I'll just leave you with this, or I mean, I'll kick it back to you with this. But I was reminded this week because I was talking to somebody about it, but for vulnerable moment, self-disclosure, um, my wife and I could not conceive. And even the doctors looked at us baffled. I'll never forget, talking to the fertility doctor and him looking like I was convinced, because we were religious, he was going to hand us a pamphlet on sex education, because the way everything checked out, I figured he just figured we didn't know what we were doing.
Sorry.
So we chose to adopt. We chose to adopt. And I just remember getting the idea. I had an intuition. I had an intuition about 7 days before. No, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. 23 hours before we got a call, because we've been on a waiting list for a few months. And I got an intuition that basically, like, now's the time, right? Like, it's going to happen now. And then about 23 hours later, we get a phone call. And then we had to go through this process, and I don't want to go into too much detail, but even the adoption process was shaky. There was an opportunity there for us to lose the child that had been placed in our care through foster to adopt. And I remember I would go down in our basement at the time. We lived in a house with an unfinished basement. I'd get really anxious, and I would go down in the basement. And the way I would calm my nerves is I would envision the courtroom in as much detail as I could. I was envisioning a future,
Mm-hmm.
and I would see the judge, in the black robe, and I would hear myself testifying before the court. And then I would always bring it to the end. And in my mind, I would hear the gavel slam down and the judge pronounce that we were now officially the parents of Elijah.
Mm.
And I would do that over and over and over again. And that ultimately happened, or came to pass. And so I've just seen this work over and over and over again in my life and in other people's lives. But it never came from this sort of pleading and begging and believing God. God said this, and I believe it's going to happen. It was much more a creative act that came out, that arose out of my own consciousness.
Yep.
And then synchronicities and circumstances would align that would get me to the end goal.
Yep. And that's you're going into the basement and visualizing it. I can't begin to tell you how powerful that is, and how that has worked in my life. Another story. We're in Arizona, and our plan was to move to Hawaii. That was the
Mm-hmm.
plan. I mean, about nothing that I tell you is going to be foreign, because we talk. But we were planning on moving to Hawaii, and so for whatever reason that didn't work out. So, we started looking around. Okay, where else can we go where we can get X amount of house for X number of dollars, right? And so we started looking here in Tulsa, and we had a checklist. What everybody wanted. First of all, everybody wanted their own room. That was one thing. The second thing was that Angela and I wanted our own offices. You know, because before we had to either share space in the office, or she had converted a corner of the living room into an office, but we wanted something with that she had an office, I had an office. Then we wanted a swimming pool. And then we wanted some yard because in Arizona, even in the big house, when we were in the McMansion, we were like in a 6,000 square foot house on a 10,000 square foot lot.
Yeah.
There wasn't much yard. So all of these things, this was our punch list. So when we found this house, we looked at it and everybody agreed this checked all the boxes. So what I began to do is I began to role play in the house. Now, mind you, we bought this house without ever having looked at it physically. We
Wow.
didn't see it physically, touch it or anything until after we closed. We did everything, basically online and over the phone.
Mm.
So I immediately said that. Oh, so this where my office is. This was the formal living room, right? So it has a super high ceiling and it's really nice trim work and all of that. Big windows in the front and I hate to call them this, but I can't think of anything else. But they call them plantation shutters. So all of that. But I began to see myself working in this space and see myself sleeping in the bedroom and see myself taking a shower in the and visualizing every aspect of it, walking around in the backyard, the whole thing, going out into the garage, visualizing. And because of this, I believe it was the envisioning of this. And watch this. See, here's the other thing that's really powerful about visions is that when you are capable of casting and sustaining a vision, that not only do you see it, but when you believe it enough, you make others see it. And see, that was something that you and I found powerful as pastors, because when we had a vision for something that the church was going to do, we had to get this corporate consciousness going, right? This corporate vision and getting everybody on board. So, but you can't get others on board if you don't see it yourself. But then what happens is that the vision, the conscious vision begins to invade and permeate your subconscious. So now it begins to manifest itself in dreams. And here's the thing about, I think dreams are actually more powerful than visions, because in a vision you're seeing something that you're seeing something that is not as though it were.
Right.
But in a dream you're seeing it this is how it is. This is the reality in the dream. So what happens is that the external vision begins to shape the reality of your subconscious. And I think that when the two of those things work hand in hand, you begin to see things happen.
Yeah.
You know what? I could tell you a whole bunch of stories. I never forget this. I'm gonna call him my boy Marshall Stooks, right? Because Marshall is like me as a car guy. And one time when we were living over in Northwest Arkansas, we were living in Bentonville, and Marshall made a surprise visit. He told Angie that he was coming. He didn't tell me. He knew that, and so the two of them conspired to, for him to come, and so Marshall came, and he had a Mercedes S class, and I remember this was, I think it was a 2002 or 2003 S class, and I was just like, wow, this car is amazing. This is really nice. And as I'm sitting in this car, and he said, well, let's go out and drive it. He gives me the key. He said, drive it around. So as I'm driving this car, I see myself behind the wheel of a Mercedes S class. I actually envision myself. I see myself parking this in my garage. I see it all clearly.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, is that Marshall's was brown. It was a chocolate brown color. I saw mine as silver, right? Guess what happened a year later?
Yeah.
I got a silver Mercedes S Class. And Marshall actually helped me to get it. He found the car. It was in Atlanta. I had to drive down. I flew down to Atlanta to pick up the car and drive it back to Arkansas. Right. What I'm getting at is that after I drove his car, I began to see myself, and I also saw myself as worthy of this, deserving of this, that this could be mine. There's no reason why this couldn't be mine. And so I get the car, and but before I get it, I'm having dreams. I'm dreaming of driving the S class. I'm envisioning this, and and I'm reading articles and reading stories about these cars, and I'm just like, okay, this is a done deal. Even before the deal had even been proposed, I knew it was a done deal. Same thing with this house. Same thing as when I bought the Tesla. And again, to pick on Marshall, I got a Tesla because I got a chance to experience the Tesla through him, and through another guy, a friend of mine in California, Patrick Summers. It's like so experiencing it through them, I was able to build a vision that caused me to dream about this, and with such intensity and intent that it couldn't help but come to
Yeah.
pass.
Yeah. Yeah. The intensity is a key, isn't it? Like intensity, commitment. Like I'm going to have this. I can feel it. I can that's really really key for people.
Yep.
People talk about law of attraction or whatever, and they'll try it for 10 days. And nothing happens. They're like, oh, it didn't work. Like you didn't have intensity. Like you didn't find a desire that really arose from your core self when you only try it for 10 days.
Right.
A few things in there, Derrick, to comment on. So the Hermetic teaching, the ancient Hermetic teaching is, and I'm gonna go somewhere with this. So the ancient Hermetic teaching is, what is the ancient Hermetic teaching, Aaron? Because you just got so many thoughts in your head, you forgot. Forgot what you were gonna say.
It's okay, man. The Hermetic teaching.
Yeah. Well, my mind went to the whole idea about, Hebrews 11, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. That word substance there is an interesting word. And it can mean sort of the fifth element. Like, so from an alchemist perspective, there was, the four elements: earth, wind, fire, water, and then there was the fifth element that really made it all work, which later became the ether, right? Or aether, whatever. We talked about that a few episodes back. Or it could mean the title deed to something. And so, the amplified version says faith is the title deed. But the interesting thing about the book of Hebrews is that the book of Hebrews reflects ancient philosophical wisdom.
Yep.
That would be rooted in the Hermetic teaching. And based on the Hermetic teaching, then everything that was created came out of mind. It came out of consciousness. So therefore your faith is interacting with that. But one of the things that's so important is that, I remember where I was going. Okay, I knew it would come back to me. You were talking about the difference between visions and dreams, and how you would walk and then it would get into your subconscious. And when it got into your subconscious, then it started to become real, right? So in the ancient Hermetic teachings, there are 3 levels of consciousness that we are all connected to. And you can think about this like those Russian nesting dolls, right?
Yep.
So the most basic level of consciousness that we're all aware of is what we call the conscious mind. It's the response of our senses and our thoughts and our emotions to what's being presented to us in whatever context we find ourselves in. So I'm going to wake up tomorrow. It's still going to be cold, and I'm still going to be pissed off about it because I'm done with winter, man. I'm ready for spring and summer and some warmer weather, But you get what I'm saying. My mental and emotional reaction is going to be because of the context. That's the conscious mind. The dreams, I think it's, pretty well established that the dreams come from the subconscious mind. So nested within that conscious mind is the subconscious mind.
Yep.
And the subconscious mind is what they used to call, before Freud and Jung, they used to call it the automatic mind. It's what we do automatically. It's the autopilot mind. It's what we do without thinking.
Yep.
So when something really gets inside of us and becomes real to us, it's become subconscious. It's at a subconscious level. And then we start dreaming about it and stuff like that. And then they would say, the Hermetic teachers would say, nested inside of that level of consciousness is what they call the superconsciousness, or the universal mind, or the universal consciousness. And this is where things like transpersonal psychology come in, where in transpersonal psychology, they try to bring in and explain phenomena that happens outside of personal experience. A little bit, it's not parapsychology, but it's these transpersonal, sort of transcendent events that we experience. So that would be the universal mind, and the universal mind is the primary mover. The universal mind sort of governs all things. And so the trick to manifestation then is to get it into the subconscious mind, but past the subconscious mind, to bring something that wants to come forth out of the universal mind, right? And I think if people can understand this, you can understand why there is failure and why vision is so important and dreams are so important, because like, this is a process. This isn't just I snap my fingers or abracadabra or I want this and I believe and I'm praying and all that stuff is garbage. There is a real, I think, repeatable process where something emerges within you that's authentic, that grips you, that you're passionate about, that you focus on, until sort of all three of those levels of consciousness come into agreement on that thing.
Yep.
And that thing will show up, which is why you can't just, it's not Aladdin's lamp, man. I mean, I almost hate to teach on the law of attraction. I believe in the law of attraction. Yep. I learned the law of attraction from the Bible, and I've seen it work over and over and over and over. Have there been times it didn't work? Yes. Can I tell you the times that it didn't work? I wasn't really super passionate about the outcome, unless it was someone else's life involved, and usually that involved a sickness or something like that. Yeah. But those are factors that maybe I didn't have any business getting into in the first place. So here's what I would tell people. In my view, this is strictly my view, and it could be bullshit, but it has worked for me.
Yeah.
I kind of see the universe now, and I've talked a lot, and you've really made me think a lot, and I appreciate that. Like, you've really dug into stuff and helped me find a comfortable place to land. Because you bring up things like, if God was real, then why doesn't he, clean out the hospitals or the children's wards and things like that? And I almost cringe if I think about doing like any kind of energy healing or teaching people anything about law of attraction, stuff like that, because I don't want to set people up for failure or disappointment, right? So here's where I'm at with it. I'll throw this at you, and I've talked a lot, kind of rambled, but
no, dude,
I'll throw
this
at you to get your ideas. I want you to think about a video game. If you're playing a video game, you're completely bound by the rules of the game. So let's take Pac-Man, because I'm an old dude. And Pac-Man's like that. It's the basic video game, right? Like it's the godfather, right, of all video games. So, and it's something everybody can relate to. So I'm bound by the maze. If I'm playing Pac-Man, I'm bound by the maze. I'm bound by what the joystick will do. And I got these ghost figures out there that are out to get me, but every once in a while I can gobble up a big pill
Mhm.
and go get them and score points and move to the next level, right? I can level up. For me, that's like people that just are going through life. They're playing Pac-Man. They're just completely bound by the games. And every once in a while you can escape the ghost, but every once in a while they get you in a corner and you're fucked, right? Like
Right.
there's nothing you can do. They're going to destroy you. And so what I like to think is that our lives is the byproduct of the universal mind, universal consciousness that has produced this sort of reality for us that's like a video game. But behind the video game, there's a computer language, right, Derrick?
Yep.
So on one level, there's a maze, there's dots, there's ghosts, there's exits, and there's levels. But on a different from a different perspective of reality, there is some kind of, I would assume, maybe binary language or some kind of computer language.
Well, let's go a couple of levels because behind the maze, you got a computer language like, say, C++, Visual Basic, right? And so then you have functions, you have loops, you have arrays and all of that. But beyond that, beneath that, that's where the digital, the ones and zeros comes in. But go ahead.
Yeah, so that's I'm glad you brought that up. So that could be like the conscious, subconscious, maybe superconscious, right? But at the end of the day, I'm assuming, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because this is your wheelhouse, not mine. Even when you get to the digits or the binary language or whatever, you're still bound by rules.
Right.
So if I could get outside of the just playing the Pac-Man game and get into the language programming of the game, I have more freedom. I can make things happen maybe in the video game that would appear miraculous to the person who's just playing it with the joystick. But I'm still bound by rules.
Yeah.
And then even if I get to the third layer of that, I could maybe even make more profound changes. I might even be able to make one change that's going to crash the whole system, which is maybe why we don't have access to that super conscious mind all the time. But I'm still bound by rules. And so I think it's important for people to understand, like, this isn't like just you get an idea and a vision and presto, it's going to happen. There are, for whatever reason, this manifestation of what I believe, this manifestation of consciousness that we're living in, there are rules that govern that.
Yep.
There's so many different parts, and it's a little impersonal, right? It's not this personal loving, like we made God out to be God, or the divine out to be father, or the goddess, the mother, or whatever. But what if it's not like that at all? What if it's more, God, I hate to almost say it, but more mechanical or more governed by rules, right?
Yeah.
And that maybe then would explain why we're able to get manifestations at a certain level through practicing the principles we're talking about tonight. And other situations seem to be beyond our grasp. I just know that.
No, but here's the thing. You talked about rules and processes, right? Part of the reason why people don't see manifestation of their visions or their dreams is because they are ignorant of the rules. You know, again, to cherry pick a Bible verse, that faith without works is dead, right?
Right.
You have
Yep.
to believe that, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not. You have to believe
Mm-hmm.
before it manifests,
Mm-hmm.
right? I've used this illustration before that the same architectural firm that designed the Sears building, which is now called the Willis Tower in Chicago, is the same company that designed the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, the tallest building in the world. In other words, they designed the tallest building in the world at one point, and then when it was over overdone or superseded, that they design the tallest building in the world again, and that in both cases, basically the vision was cast on a cocktail napkin.
Right.
So there is a step where, again, and this is why, Aaron, you're teaching on consciousness so resonates with me and has changed my life in so many ways, because I consider myself an atheist. I don't believe that there's any God, right? I do believe that there is a collective consciousness, and that this consciousness, like you said, drives, it undergirds, it underpins, it moves our individual conscious thought. And so this, tying back to consciousness, to in so many different ways I can go with this, but you, for example, if you have a computer, right? You and I both have, we have Macs laptops, right?
Yeah.
And they have batteries, right? So they
Right.
can operate independently. They don't have to be plugged in. But sooner or later, they have to be tethered to the charger so that they can get recharged.
Right.
If not, if it doesn't get that initial uploading of battery power,
Right.
right? This is essentially a paperweight. So
Yeah.
we have to get connected to the
Yep.
power source.
Yep.
Then from there, we can say, okay, this is something that I have in my mind. I need to, and we were talking about the collective consciousness or corporate consciousness, corporate vision. That, okay, that the vision that I have, I can't do this by myself.
Right.
This is something that can't happen by myself. Or, and this is the other thing too, is that everybody, and this may be the most important thing I say about this, that everybody's not a visionary.
Right.
There are some people who have to, whose sole purpose in life is to execute a vision of someone else. Now, this doesn't belittle your humanity. It doesn't diminish your divinity. It doesn't take away anything from you. It just means that you're not that guy or that gal that has that vision. So sometimes you'll have the vision. Sometimes you need to plug into a vision, right? It's like, God damn, like for example, with Apple, you had Steve Jobs, who had this vision of a smartphone, right?
Hmm.
Now, the vision, I mean, the smartphone was not anything new. Palm had done this before. This was not new. What Steve Jobs said is, okay, I'm going to change the form factor of this so that there are no buttons, there are no styluses. This is just your finger on the screen, right? How many
God.
people did he have to get to plug into that vision to bring that vision to pass? So
Sure.
that's one of the rules, right? That okay, like you and I, we talk about this. I mean, we talk about all kinds of shit. And, I
Yeah.
mean, y'all listen. Me and Aaron, we come up with. Listen, you guys would be absolutely blown away by half the shit we talk about, right, off screen. But everybody is not going to be a visionary like that. And the flip side of it is that just because you're the visionary doesn't mean you're going to be the one to execute it. Oh man. Let me say that again for the people in the back. Just because you have the vision doesn't mean that you're going to be the one to carry it out. There, man.
Mm.
Okay, another example. Every Many of you who are at least 40 years old know what a fucking Oldsmobile is, right? Oldsmobile was a division of General Motors, and it was named after a guy named Ransom E. Olds, right? And Ransom E. Olds is the guy who developed the automobile assembly line, right? He designed it. This was his vision, right? But the who was the guy who put it on the map? Henry Ford. Henry
Mm.
Ford took the vision of someone else and built on that. And that's the other thing too, is that you may not have an original vision, but you may be able to build on an existing vision and help to bring it to pass or help to scale it to make it the big thing. Um, but if you're not, man, the rules of the game. I heard this recently. Matter of fact, I think it was maybe yesterday. There was somebody that was saying, and I don't remember. I watched this on YouTube, I think, but this guy he was narrating, and he said that his mother taught him how to play Monopoly when he was a kid, and that at the end she wound up owning all the property, and she explained to him, this is how the world works.
Hmm. Yeah.
You know that if you are clever, if you follow the rules, if you're able to bend the rules to your will, you're able to win the game. But at the end of the game, all the pieces for all the players and the board go back in the box. In other words, it runs its course, and then it goes back to where it came from. What
It's
am I
good.
saying? Is that, Aaron, you were talking about playing by the rules. Video games, they have rules. And this is the funny thing, like people will find cheat codes, right? Like
Yeah.
like I remember in Pac-Man that if it was like if you went near the where the ghost came out in the box in the center, and you hit your joystick like three times hard to the left and once to the right and two times to the left and three more times to the right or something like that, that you'd force these ghosts into a pattern that they would have to follow you wherever you led them. And if you did this, you could go to the big dots, the stop signs, turn them blue, and go and wipe them out, right? So you understand the rules, you understand the cheat codes, but at the end of the day, nobody gets ahead by trying to, you know, God, I'm going to say this and I'm going to shut up because I just got off the phone with a friend of mine before we started, and I was explaining to him that in every business situation, there's this Kobayashi Maru. Now, for you Star Trek fans out there, you know the fuck I'm talking about, right? The Kobayashi Maru was the unwinnable simulation. And this is Captain Kirk's claim to fame, is he was the only guy to beat the simulation. It was a no-win situation. You were going to die. Your ship was going to be destroyed. The end. But Kirk learned to rig the simulation in his favor. Here's the thing, folks, is that there is no Kobayashi Maru in real life.
Mm.
You are going to, if you're going to manifest the law of attraction, if you're going to manifest corporate consciousness, a global consciousness, a universal consciousness, if you're going to manifest what is in your heart and mind into the natural world, there are rules that you have to do this. And to your point, Aaron, I want to go back to this. I want to tie this together. That you can't just do something that's just like, we're talking about physical fitness. You can't get out there and do 10 bench presses and say, well, I didn't lose any weight, so I quit.
Right.
If you
Exactly.
do that, you fail,
Exactly.
right?
Good point.
So you have to, first of all, you have to recognize that, number one, there is a process, right? And the process is different for different people. It's different for different situations. It's different for different circumstances. It's different for different manifestations. That's one. The second thing is time, right? That as long as we are in these meat sacks that we call our bodies, right, we're bound by linear time.
Right.
And that there is that everything that we do, it takes time. There is nothing. Matter of fact, when we were kids, there was this thing called the easy bake oven.
I remember that.
The easy bake oven. And the easy bake oven, everybody thought, that it was like you stick cake batter in one end and a cake comes out of the other end.
Yeah.
But what people didn't tell you is that there was a process. I'll never forget this. I'm gonna say this and I'll shut up, because my sister Michelle got an easy bake oven once for Christmas, right? And she tried to make a cake. She put it in the oven and it sits under the light bulb, right, to bake. But she never let it go long enough. And so she got frustrated with the thing and said, fuck it, and just let it go. I found the easy bake oven and figured it out. That it takes, basically, just like it takes like maybe 40 minutes to bake a cake, it takes about that time for that easy bake cake to sit under the lamp. But I found some other interesting things about it, is that you could fry a slice of bologna in that fucker. Yes, you could. You could fry an egg in it. And if you were particularly creative and particularly patient, you could take a slice of bologna and put it in one of those pans and put an egg on top of it and wait it out. It took maybe about 40 minutes for it to happen, but then you'd have a perfect bologna and egg, like an egg McMuffin. And you could take that and put it on a sandwich, and it was good to go. The thing is, the point that I'm getting at, and to really focus in on your point, Aaron, is that in the realm of vision and dreams, is that there is a process, there is a rule book that you have to follow. And if you're not willing to follow the rules, if you're not willing to follow the process, you can't complain when your cake comes out shitty, or if your bologna comes out raw and your egg comes out runny.
Yeah. It's so true. That's great. Jermaine's having a time with that story there. I just saw that in the comments.
Well, see, Jermaine is from Chicago, so and he's close to my age. He's a little bit younger than me, maybe closer to your age than mine. But you're old enough to remember the Easy Bake Oven.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I didn't know you could make a bologna and egg sandwich out of it.
Oh man, listen, you could do anything that you could do in a natural oven, you could do in an Easy Bake Oven.
Dude, I got to be honest, and I told you this last week. I don't eat it at McDonald's much, but I had no idea that an egg McMuffin was bologna and egg until this moment. I was this years old.
Well, they say it's Canadian bacon, which Canadian bacon is really just sort of a type of ham.
Yeah,
It isn't really bologna, but it's not far removed from that.
yeah,
But if
yeah.
you want an egg McMuffin on a
Dude,
budget,
I just learned about fried bologna sandwiches like 2 years ago. So
oh my
I
God.
didn't know anybody fried bologna. I was like, what?
Well, whenever you make it to Tulsa, man, I promise you that I was going to smoke a brisket or something like that. But we're going to have some fried bologna sandwiches with American cheese.
Dude, I just learned about the wonders of Spam just a couple of years ago too. So
Oh my
that
God,
stuff.
that's
My
funny.
mom, my mom made Spam a couple of times, and it tasted like shit. Like I don't know what she did. I don't know how somebody can fuck up Spam, but it was so bad. I swore I'd never eat it again. And then we had some friends a few years ago that the guy just loved, fried Spam sandwiches and whatever. And so they finally talked me into trying it, right? And I was like, damn, you can do some pretty good stuff with Spam. And then I got into the what's it called, musabi or something, the Hawaiian sort
Yep,
of Spam sushi.
yep,
Oh
yep.
man, heaven.
it's funny. Like my oldest son, and check this out. We didn't raise our kids on spam. We didn't. I don't know
Right.
where my son got this from, but now he's like the fucking spam ninja.
I love it. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's great. Well, hopefully that helped people tonight. If nothing else about vision, I would say this. So I'll tell a story. I'll finish with a very personal story. So I've alluded to at various different times when I talk about my testimony that I came out of a lot of trauma when I came into the church. And aspects of the story, Derrick, because I've shared the whole story with you. But I went through one season when I was about 18, 19 years old. And dude, I was just destroyed, man. I didn't have any sense of capability. I was paralyzed with social anxiety. And at one point, I really did begin to contemplate suicide. Now, I'm not a suicidal, I don't lean that direction. Like some people, their temperament or their brain chemistry, they can lean that direction. This was completely circumstantial. But I was leaning that direction. And this is where I guess I have to give some kudos to religion. I remember seeing on a plaque somewhere, Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you hope in the future. And the NIV. And that brought something, and I thought, oh, if only that were true, right? And then somebody gave me their business card, and they wrote on the back of the business card, this all happened within a span of time, Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you a hope in the future. I thought it was a weird thing to write on the back of a business card. And then I remember driving by a church, and their, what do you call that thing? Their sign. I'm sure there's
Marquee.
Yeah, the marquee. Yeah, thank you. It had that verse on there, Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you a hope in the future. So that was getting my attention because I was seeing it with such frequency that I really thought this, Derrick. I thought, well, it's come to this. This is the thought I had when I was 18 and I got radically saved. It's come to this. I can kill myself and cause all kinds of pain and trauma to my family and everybody else and face whatever's out there. Or I can find Jesus. I mean, that's when there's a problem with the messaging in the church. When you're like, it's come to this. It's suicide or church. Which one do we try? But I seriously contemplated that. And I really remember thinking, well, suicide's the final solution, right? Like there's no coming back from that. So let's give Jesus a try. So I show up at this church, just randomly picked one in my neighborhood that had some young people who went to it and whatever. And I pull out their hymn book, or I don't know, maybe it's their liturgy book. They weren't a liturgical church. I don't remember what book it was, but it's in the pew. You remember when we had pews?
Yeah.
And you had and I pull it out and I look at the back of the book, and there's a Bible verse on it. And guess what that Bible verse was?
Jeremiah 29:11.
Yeah. And that was the moment that I internalized that. I said, okay, this is for me. I'm going to put my faith and confidence and trust in this.
Yeah.
So the 2 points I want to make is, and after that, I started to come out of it. I started to, in fact, it wasn't a year later, my life had completely transformed. Just not because God did something to me, but because I grabbed hold of that belief. I internalized it. It got into my subconscious, and I said, okay, this is for me. And I began to get hope. I began to get a vision for something better. Even if you don't have a specific vision for a car, job, relationship. What else do people think about? Even if you just have a generalized idea, there's something good is going to happen to me. There's a better day. This season of depression and suicidal ideation and all this crap that I'm going through and people being shitty and assholes, there's a better day out there for me. I've got confidence that there's a better future, that there'll be a day when this day that I think is so bad is nothing more than a memory. That can be the power of a vision.
Yep.
Like vision can keep you and sustain you and get you through difficult, terrible, horrible times. And sometimes all a person needs is a little bit of vision to give them hope, to get them through a really bad time.
You know what? I've been saying something to myself all this week. You want to know what it is? Because
What's that?
this has been my mantra for the week. It's never as bad as it seems.
Love it.
It's never as bad as it seems. And that can be a vision. And again, if you allow that vision to permeate your thoughts, it will permeate your subconscious and get in your dreams. And what happens then is that no matter how bad you think things are, they're never as bad as they seem because you have manifested this into your life. So that's
Yeah.
it's good shit, man.
Yeah. Maybe a good place to end. We're at an hour and 11 minutes. So,
Yep.
that's a good new age signal that it's time to
Yeah, you know,
one.
it would have been really serendipitous if it was like an hour and 11 minutes or in 11 seconds,
Yeah. Yeah.
all
Well,
ones.
nobody counts the seconds.
Yeah.
They move too fast.
Well, Aaron, and with that being said, what is the typical response or the
To
typical closing?
Thank you for coming to our TED Talk. And I really genuinely hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it was therapeutic for me. I hope it was for you too, Derrick.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I just want to say, man, that this is my therapy. You know, uh,
For me.
uh, Fridays when our conversations online and our conversations offline. This is my therapy. You're my therapist, man.
Well, it's mutual. So anyway, peace and hair grease. Peace out, everybody. Hope you're doing well.
Love
Keep your
y'all.
blessed.